I'm Olivia Hayes, and if you had told me a year ago that my brother's wedding would become the most humiliating day of my life, I might have laughed. Michael and I were close, growing up inseparable. Really, he was my best friend, my protector, the one person who always saw me for who I was, even when no one else did. But that all changed when he met Bianca. She was everything our mother ever wanted in a daughter-in-law: polished, elegant, from a well-connected family. From the very first brunch where she shook my hand like she was meeting a hotel receptionist, I sensed she didn't see me as family. I brushed it off. I always brush things off for the sake of peace, for the sake of my son. I'm a single mom to Liam. He's 8, bright, sensitive, and far too observant for his age. We've been a team since the moment his father walked away when I was 6 months pregnant. I built a life for us from scratch, working 2 jobs, finishing my degree online, and eventually opening my own floral design business. It's not glamorous, but it's honest, and it's ours. So no. I didn't expect to be publicly ridiculed at a wedding, certainly not by the bride, and definitely not with my own family laughing along. But as I sat there, stunned by Bianca's words, something remarkable happened. Liam, my quiet, artistic, always thoughtful little boy, stood up, walked to the DJ booth, and asked for the microphone. I had no idea what he was about to say. Neither did the hundreds of guests who had just laughed at their new favorite joke. But what came next would unravel everything they thought they knew and remind them that even a child's voice can carry the weight of truth. Growing up, Michael and I were a unit, just 2 kids in a cramped house in northern Ohio, trying to survive our mother's perfectionism and our father's passive silence. Michael was the golden boy, everyone said so, but he never treated me like I was less. If he got a trophy, he saved me the ribbon. If he won the spelling bee, he made a handmade certificate for me. 2. Best sister in the universe. It would read in crooked little letters. When I turned 10, he used his paper route money to buy me my first sketch pad. I'd always been drawn to flowers, colors, arrangements. Michael didn't get it, but he supported it. "You see the world in ways I can't," he once said, flipping through pages of my doodles. "I just read the labels. You write the poetry." That stayed with me. Even as life shifted: college, work, bad choices, especially the worst one, Liam's father, Carson. At first, he seemed like a stable option, steady job, said all the right things. But when I told him I was pregnant, he turned pale and then angry. "I'm not ready to be a father," he muttered before disappearing from my life completely. I haven't seen him since. Michael stepped in where Carson stepped out. He helped me move into my tiny apartment, repainted the nursery, and drove across town to bring me groceries when I was too tired to shop. After Liam was born, Michael showed up nearly every weekend. He was Uncle Mike before Liam could even say his own name properly. When I launched my floral design business out of our 1-car garage, Michael was my first client. He brought me his firm's holiday party to decorate, even when his partner joked that I should stick to arranging daisies. Michael smiled and said, "You'll be sorry when she's booked out 6 months in advance." And he wasn't wrong. I built my business from the ground up: late nights, no days off, dozens of weddings where I watched happy couples kiss under arches I built by hand. It was bittersweet, sure, but I had Liam, and I had my work. That was enough. Until Bianca. The first time I met her, she wore white silk slacks and a turtleneck in July. Her handshake was firm, her smile tight. She complimented the centerpieces I'd brought to our parents' anniversary dinner, then turned to Michael and asked if I was the decorator friend he'd mentioned. I corrected her, gently. "Floral designer?" I said. She blinked once and turned back to the wine list. I wanted to give her the benefit of the doubt. Maybe she was just shy or nervous. Or not used to kids when she visibly recoiled after Liam offered her a dandelion bouquet? But over the months, those moments added up. At brunch, she cut me off mid-sentence to tell Michael about a new rooftop bar. At family dinners, she asked probing questions about my finances under the guise of wanting to help me budget. When I finally confronted Michael, he brushed it off. "She's just direct," he said. "She doesn't mean anything by it." But I knew that kind of woman. I'd gone to school with them, had been dismissed by them in client meetings. She saw me not as family, not even as competition, but as someone barely worth acknowledging. Still, I showed up. I kept the peace. Liam liked her, or at least, he tried to. He drew her a card once. It said, "Welcome to our family," with little hearts and flowers all around. Bianca took it between two fingers like it was a dead bug and smiled without opening it. "How sweet," she said, and then tucked it into her clutch without another word. Liam asked about it on the drive home. Did she not like my drawing? She's just not used to little kids, I told him, forcing a smile, but I'm sure she appreciated it. Liam was quiet for a while, then said, "Maybe next time I'll draw her favorite things." That's Liam. Always looking for the good, always trying again. He has a heart so pure it frightens me sometimes. Like the world could shatter it and he'd still hold out a piece to someone who hurt him and ask, "Do you want to try again?" But even Liam's optimism couldn't patch the cracks forming in our family. As Bianca and Michael got more serious, I was pushed further to the sidelines. I wasn't asked to help with the wedding planning despite being in the industry or even to be part of the bridal party. "She's keeping it tight," Michael had said over a rushed phone call. "Just her sisters and a few college friends." You understand, right? I didn't. But I told him I did. Instead of being offended, I threw myself into making something beautiful for them. A custom floral arrangement with blooms that symbolized loyalty, growth, and harmony. I planned to bring it to the rehearsal dinner as a peace offering, a final attempt to show Bianca that I wasn't competing with her, that I wanted to be part of her life, not in the way she feared, but as a sister. But things didn't go as planned. 2 weeks before the wedding, Liam and I went to the mall to pick up a picture frame for the floral sketch I'd made them. Liam asked to stop by the toy store while I shopped next door. I agreed, since it was just a few feet away. What happened next? Well, I didn't learn about it until later. Liam didn't say a word that day. Not until the wedding. Not until he stood up and took that microphone. The days leading up to the wedding passed in a strange kind of haze. I kept expecting something, anything that would make me feel like I was part of it. A text from Michael checking in. An invitation to help with last-minute prep. A simple, "Can you come early?" from Bianca? But nothing came. The group chat for bridal party coordination that my mother kept raving about, I wasn't in it. My mother, Diana, would casually mention things like the dress fitting at the private boutique downtown, or the pre-wedding spa day, and then abruptly go quiet when she remembered I hadn't been invited. "Oh, I'm sure you wouldn't have had time anyway," she said once, waving a hand. "Running your little flower business and all." I forced a smile and said nothing. I was used to it. I'd been used to it since Michael got his first scholarship and I got my first part-time waitressing job. It had always been clear who the star was in our family. But that never bothered me until it meant I could be erased completely. Liam, bless him, was still excited. He'd picked out his own tiny blue tie to match the groomsmen after overhearing Michael mention the color scheme. He asked if there would be dancing, if he'd get to give his new aunt the drawing he was working on, a picture of our whole family together, including you. Mom. My heart caught when I saw it. He'd drawn Michael and Bianca in front of a huge cake, himself in his best suit. And me, standing off to the side, holding a bouquet, smiling, watching. Even in his imagination, I wasn't centered, I was support, background. The rehearsal dinner confirmed it. We arrived early. Liam bouncing with excitement in his blazer, me carrying a wrapped frame and a carefully arranged floral piece made with the couple's birth flowers, and were greeted with polite indifference. Bianca's family dominated the space, sleek, polished people in navy suits and pearls, sipping wine and discussing renovations to second homes like they were talking about groceries. I scanned the room for my brother. He was at the head table, surrounded by Bianca's sisters and groomsmen. When he finally spotted me, he waved. Just a small flick of his fingers. No rush to greet us. No hug. I set the flowers down on the gift table and found our place cards. We were seated at the far end of the room, with a couple of Michael's distant colleagues I'd never met. The kind of people who smiled at Liam like he was a well-behaved puppy, then turned back to their conversations. When Bianca stood to give a toast, she thanked her parents for their generosity, her bridesmaids for their friendship, and Michael's parents for raising such a wonderful man. No mention of me, not even a glance. Liam tugged on my sleeve during dessert. "When can I give her the picture after dinner?" I whispered. "When people are mingling?" We waited. As guests moved about the room, Liam approached her carefully. She was chatting with a group of friends, a flute of champagne in one hand. "Hi, Aunt Bianca," he said, offering her the drawing with both hands. "I made this for you." She looked down, startled, then glanced around at her friends. "Oh," she said, taking it between her thumb and forefinger. "How cute." She didn't open it. She didn't kneel down to say thank you. She turned to one of her bridesmaids and started laughing about something before setting the drawing face down on a side table. I saw Liam's expression fall like a stone into deep water. He didn't say anything. He just walked back to me and quietly asked if we could go home. I said yes. The next morning, he was still quiet, not sullen, not angry, just thoughtful in a way that made my heart ache. I tried to distract him with pancakes shaped like stars, his favorite, but he barely touched them. He kept staring at the folded-up tucks on the hanger by the door. "She'll like my other drawing better," he said eventually. "You made her another one?" He nodded. "It's a surprise. I didn't ask what it was." The day of the wedding was painfully beautiful. Early June, soft sunlight, just enough breeze to lift the ends of my hair. I'd found a dusty rose dress on clearance and had spent hours altering it by hand. I curled my hair and wore makeup I hadn't touched in months. Liam wore his tiny suit again, and I let him use my bronzer to feel fancy. We arrived early, as the invitation requested. The church was stunning arched ceilings, stained glass glowing like jewels. But the closer we got, the more I felt like an intruder. Every pew in the first 6 rows was marked Family of the Bride. The woman at the check-in table gave me a tight smile and pointed us to row 12. "I'm the groom's sister," I said quietly. "Yes, this is where you're seated," she replied, eyes already on the next couple. I didn't argue. I didn't have the energy. From our spot near the back, I watched my parents enter and be escorted to the front pew. My mother didn't even glance over her shoulder. She looked radiant in her new outfit, all pearls and posture, as if this were her own coronation. The ceremony itself was beautiful. Bianca was stunning. Michael looked dazed but happy. And Liam held my hand the entire time, his small fingers squeezing mine every time someone laughed or clapped. Afterward, in the receiving line, Bianca barely made eye contact. When Liam offered his new drawing, she glanced at it, mumbled, "Put it with the gifts, sweetie," and turned away. He tucked it back into his folder without a word. At the reception, things only got worse. We were seated at the very back again with people I didn't know. I spotted Bianca's great-aunt seated closer to the head table than us. I saw the dismissive looks, heard the whispered comments, felt the sharp edge of every polite conversation. And then came the moment I should have expected but still couldn't quite believe. Bianca took the microphone. "A toast," she said. Just a few words of thanks. It started normal, thanking her parents, thanking Michael's parents, complimenting her bridesmaids. Then her tone shifted. And she said it, that I was just a pathetic single mom who couldn't keep a man. The room froze. My skin went cold. I wanted to disappear, to sink into the floor, to scream. My mother laughed. Not just a chuckle, a delighted, performative laugh like it was the best joke she'd heard all evening. And then she added her own insult, a cruel little metaphor about me being a discount model with a scratched label. There it was, my family, laughing at me, in front of hundreds of people. I didn't cry. I didn't stand. I didn't speak. But Liam did. I don't remember breathing in that moment. Bianca's words hung in the air like thick smoke, ugly, choking, inescapable. Laughter followed, hesitant at first, then louder, emboldened by my mother's cackling approval. It rippled through the room, a wave of cruelty disguised as celebration. I sat frozen at our table, a fork still in my hand, my cheeks burning. My body hummed with shame, rage, disbelief. The blood in my ears was so loud I couldn't hear the clinking glasses or the music that started back up to transition the mood. My vision blurred. I refused to let the tears fall, not here. Not now. Not in front of my son. But when I finally looked down at Liam, I found him already watching me, not with fear, not with confusion, but with something else entirely. Resolve. "Mom," he whispered, tugging at my sleeve. "Can I go to the bathroom?" I nodded, distracted, just past the dessert table. "Sweetheart." He slipped away, small and silent in his navy suit. I stared at my plate, trying to disappear into it. I didn't notice the music stop again, didn't register the murmurs or the subtle shift in the crowd until I heard the single clearest sound I'd ever heard in my life. "Excuse me." My head jerked up. Liam, my Liam, standing on the small stage beside the DJ, gripping a wireless microphone with both hands. His little voice echoed through the hall. "Excuse me, everyone." The ballroom fell silent. Bianca and Michael froze mid-dance. A server stopped pouring champagne mid-pour. Even my mother turned, lips parted, startled. The DJ, caught off guard, fumbled to lower the music. "I know something about the bride," Liam said. Gasps followed. My heart stopped. He looked so small up there, but there was no tremble in his voice, no hesitation. He stood straight, shoulders squared in the same defiant posture I'd seen when he stood up for a kid at the playground who got pushed around. His courage always came wrapped in kindness, but make no mistake, it was courage. 3 weeks ago, Liam continued. Mom took me to the Green Hills Mall to buy Uncle Michael a wedding present. I was in the toy store, and I saw Aunt Bianca. The room was utterly still. Not a clink, not a whisper. She didn't see me because I was behind the display with the Legos. He said, speaking like he was reporting to his teacher, she was with a man, not Uncle Michael. They were standing by the fountain, and they were kissing, like in movies. He held up his hands awkwardly, miming a tight hug. Not like a high kiss, the long kind. People turned to one another, hands over mouths. Shock spread like a contagion. Bianca's face had gone stark white. Her fingers clutched Michael's sleeve, but he shook her off and stared at Liam like he was looking into a window he'd never dared open. The man had dark hair and a blue jacket with patches on the elbows. Liam went on. He gave her a key and said, "Can't wait for next weekend." And she said, "It'll be our special place." I stood now, paralyzed between the urge to run to him and the need to let him finish. Something in me, instinct, maybe said this was his moment, and I wasn't going to take it away from him. Liam took a breath and added, I didn't say anything because I thought it was rude to interrupt grown-ups. But the bride interrupted my mom tonight, so I figured it was okay now. That line shattered the room. Bianca gasped, stumbling back. "That's a lie," she cried. "He's just a child. He doesn't know what he saw." Michael stared at her. His mouth opened, then closed again, then opened once more. "Marcus," he asked softly. The name landed like a bomb. Bianca whipped around to glare at him. "You're going to believe him over me!" My mother finally found her voice. That child has always had a wild imagination. He probably saw someone else entirely, but no one was looking at her. They were looking at Michael. His face had gone cold, courtroom cold. I called it. The lawyer in him had taken over, evaluating, dissecting, digging through facts. 3 weeks ago was the spa retreat weekend, he said, his voice low and hard. "You said you were going with your mother." Bianca blinked. I did. "And you posted photos." "Yes," she said, seizing the lifeline. "Exactly. We were at Limon. I called Limon last week to book us a couples massage," Michael said. "They've been closed for renovations since May." Bianca's mouth dropped open. Her mother, up until then, a statue of icy decorum, closed her eyes and muttered, "Oh, Bianca." Michael turned back to her. "Where's the key? What the key he gave you?" "I don't have it." "Show me your purse and—" "I'm not— This is absurd, Bianca." It was one word, but it cracked her. She fumbled with her satin clutch and reluctantly handed it over. Michael opened it slowly, pulling out a few items: lipstick, compact, wallet, then a single key on a plain metal ring. He held it up. "Is this it?" She didn't speak. "You told me it was a key to your office." Bianca's voice was faint. "It is. Your office has key cards. No metal keys." The silence that followed was unbearable. I could feel the stares, the secondhand shame, but I wasn't the one in the hot seat anymore. Bianca finally spoke. It was just a goodbye, to whom she didn't answer. Michael took a long breath, then walked down from the stage. His steps were slow but steady. He reached Liam first, dropped to one knee. "Thank you for telling the truth," he said. "That was very brave." Liam blinked up at him, unsure. "Mom says telling the truth is always important," he replied. Michael looked over at me, and for the first time in months, I saw my brother. Really saw him. And he saw me, too. "I'm sorry," he whispered. And I believed him. Bianca was still standing by the head table, her chest heaving, lips parted in disbelief. The satin folds of her designer gown no longer gave her the poise of a queen. They clung to her like armor that was no longer protecting her. Her mascara had begun to run, leaving trails down her cheeks. Michael rose slowly from his crouch beside Liam. He didn't look at Bianca. Not yet. His gaze lingered on me and my son. I don't know what he saw in that moment, perhaps the years he'd ignored, the holidays he'd missed, the birthdays I'd covered alone, but it must have hit him all at once. Then Bianca's voice, sharp and shaky, sliced through the hush. "This is insane," she cried. "You're seriously going to take the word of an 8-year-old over your own fiancé in front of all these people?" Michael turned to her. His expression wasn't angry. Not yet, but it was cold, clinical. I'd seen that look once before when he cross-examined a hostile witness at a small claims case I'd tagged along to in college. He dismantled her with nothing but questions and silence. He took a breath. "How long?" "Bianca." "Oh, don't start that," she snapped, trying to regain composure. "I told you it was just a goodbye. With tongue, with a key, with I can't wait for next weekend." Her face twitched. "Marcus and I have history. We had loose ends. I wanted closure." Michael's voice dropped low, but it carried like thunder. "You were still sleeping with him, weren't you?" There was a gasp. Not from the crowd this time, from Bianca's mother, whose face was an alarming shade of pink. Don't answer that, her father barked, stepping forward now, as though this were a deposition he could still control. Bianca, come with me. This is beneath you. Michael turned on him sharply. She doesn't need rescuing. She needs to tell the truth. She's not saying another word, he growled. And as for you, young man, I suggest you wrap up this little melodrama. We've invested over $100,000 into this wedding. Michael's laugh cut him off. It was short, bitter, not amused in the least, and I was about to invest my life, but I think I got the better bargain. Bianca's mother tried to step in. Let's all calm down, we're done here, Michael said, suddenly calm. Too calm. The ceremony might have been legal, but the marriage ends tonight. Bianca reeled back like he'd slapped her. You can't be serious. Michael's voice didn't rise. Dead serious. She reached out. Please, this is just a misunderstanding. We can go home, talk, figure this out. You love me? I thought I did, he said quietly. But I don't even recognize the person I was when I let you turn me into someone who stood by and watched his sister be humiliated. That hit me harder than I expected. I stood there, he said again, this time glancing toward me, and I said nothing. That was my lowest moment. I felt the sting behind my eyes, but I didn't cry. Not now. Not while the wreckage still smoldered. Bianca's father had had enough. We'll speak to our attorneys. He spat. This is slander. That child, I said suddenly, stepping forward, has more integrity in his little finger than your daughter has in her entire being? It came out sharper than I intended, but I didn't regret it. Not when Liam looked up at me, startled but proud. Bianca made a last-ditch effort, her voice quivering. You'll regret this. Michael, you'll regret embarrassing my family like this. Michael stared at her with a kind of finality that didn't need translation. No. Bianca, he said. What I regret is not listening to every red flag, every instinct, every warning Olivia tried to give me. His words landed heavy, like stone. Bianca turned on her heel and stormed toward the exit, her train dragging behind her like a fallen flag of a losing army. Her parents followed quickly, whispering furiously and ignoring the shocked stares from guests. When the ballroom doors closed behind them, silence settled over the crowd again. Dozens of guests sat motionless, stunned. Some looked at me with tentative sympathy. Some looked at Michael with awe. Others simply gathered their things and made polite excuses. Michael stepped toward me and Liam. Go home, he said softly. I'll handle what's left. You sure I asked? He nodded. This isn't your mess. Not anymore. I bent to Liam and brushed his curls back. Ready, baby? He nodded solemnly. Can we get pancakes tomorrow? That made me smile. We can get pancakes and French toast and hot chocolate, too. As we left, I glanced back one last time. The chandeliers still sparkled. The centerpieces still stood. But the illusion had shattered. The perfect wedding had become a cautionary tale. Later that night, I sat curled on our couch, Liam finally asleep in his bed. I held his discarded drawing in my hands, the one Bianca had refused to accept. In it, he'd drawn all four of us, him, me, Michael, and Bianca. Only now I realized he'd drawn Bianca with her face turned away from the group, and mine right in the center, holding everyone's hands. I hadn't noticed it before. There was a knock at the door at nearly 2 a.m. My heart jumped. I approached cautiously. Through the peephole, Michael, still in his tux, bow tie undone, jacket draped over one arm. Can I come in? He asked, voice hoarse. Of course. He stood there in my small living room, just looking around. I forgot how warm this place feels. He said, not fancy, but real. I handed him tea. He held it like it was the only solid thing in the world. We talked for hours. He told me how, after I left, Bianca had a breakdown. Guests left in waves. Her father threatened lawsuits. Her mother tried to salvage things. But Michael knew it was over. She said Marcus didn't have the social standing to marry. He murmured that I was the respectable option, the safe choice, a mask. I felt ill hearing it. You were never a mask. I said, you were the best thing in her life. She just didn't deserve it. He looked up at me then. You tried to tell me. I did, and I didn't listen. No, I agreed. You didn't. A long pause. I'm sorry, he said, for everything. For letting her hurt you. For letting me hurt you. I reached out and put my hand on his. Thank you for saying that. The silence that followed wasn't heavy this time. It was healing. We were on our way to something better. The morning after the wedding, I expected silence. I expected my phone to buzz with gossip, vague texts, maybe my mother calling to berate me for ruining everything. I expected awkward social fallout, a few clients canceling their orders. But the first thing I woke up to was the smell of fresh bagels. I stepped into the kitchen to find Michael at my stove, still in his tuxedo pants and white shirt, flipping eggs in my scratched-up frying pan like it was a Saturday morning from 5 years ago. Liam sat at the table, already halfway through a chocolate chip bagel, kicking his heels with delight. You're really here, I said. Michael looked over his shoulder. I made coffee. It's terrible, but I tried. We sat. We ate. We didn't talk about Bianca or the wedding for 20 minutes. Then, once Liam was back in his room building Legos, Michael finally said it. She admitted it. The affair. The key was to an apartment Marcus had leased. They'd been seeing each other since before we got engaged. I closed my eyes. She was going to marry me for the lifestyle, the stability, the image. I nodded slowly. That's what narcissists do. They collect people. You were going to be her trophy. Michael laughed, but it was bitter. She called Liam a liar. Her father threatened to sue him, said we'd ruined her reputation. That made my blood go cold. He threatened my child. Michael looked up. I shut it down. I told him I'd sue for fraud and emotional distress if they ever contacted you. And I meant it. I didn't say thank you. I just reached over and squeezed his hand. Mom left a message this morning. He added, she said we overreacted. Of course she did. And Dad, I asked. He hesitated. I think he's processing. He's always been better at pretending everything's fine than facing conflict. That's one way to put it, I muttered. You think they'll show up? Michael sighed. She wants a family meeting. I think she's terrified of what people will say. Not about Bianca. About us. About how we handled it. I let out a hollow laugh. Handled what? The truth Michael didn't answer. Later that afternoon, my father showed up at my apartment alone. He sat stiffly on the edge of the couch, like he wasn't sure if he was welcome. I offered him tea. He declined. His hands were clasped in front of him, knuckles pale. I failed you both, he said simply, eyes flickering between me and Michael. Your mother runs this family, and I let her. I always told myself I was keeping the peace. But the truth is, I was avoiding the fire. He looked at me, and I saw it in your eyes. Last night. How long you felt outside this family. I didn't deny it. I'm sorry, he said, for the years of silence, for not stopping her, for letting you feel like less. There was a rawness in his voice I'd never heard before. We sat in silence. Finally, I nodded. Thank you for saying that. It was a beginning. That Sunday, we agreed to meet at the house. Neutral ground, supposedly. Michael insisted Liam come too. He deserves to see that we're handling this with respect, he said. I agreed, but I warned Liam that grown-ups would be having some big conversations. Liam, ever perceptive, just packed his colored pencils and said, I'll draw in the corner if it gets weird." When we arrived, my mother was already pacing the dining room, the table perfectly set even though no one would be eating. Her lipstick was flawless, but her eyes looked tired. She turned when we walked in, her gaze scanning all three of us. "I'm glad you came," she said stiffly. "Let's talk," Michael said. She launched in immediately. "I just don't understand what happened." She began. "Everything was fine until Olivia started making things dramatic. You embarrassed Bianca in front of everyone. I didn't say a word that night," I said calmly. "You didn't have to." "That child of yours, stop," Michael snapped, his voice cold. "Don't you dare blame Liam." Diana's mouth opened, then closed. "Bianca cheated on me. She used me. You know this. You saw the proof. She said it was a mistake." "It wasn't just a mistake," Michael exploded. "It was months of deception. And you're more upset about the wedding being ruined than about your own daughter being humiliated in front of hundreds of people." Silence. "And Olivia," he added, softer now, "has taken your condescension for years, smiling through it, enduring it, and still showing up for you, for me. You treated her like an afterthought, and then let a stranger, your future daughter-in-law, humiliate her in public. And you laughed." Tears welled up in my mother's eyes. "I don't know who I became," she whispered. "When I heard myself laugh, it was like I didn't recognize my own voice." She looked at me now. "I'm so sorry, Olivia." I folded my hands on the table. "Do you know what hurt the most?" I said, quietly. "It wasn't what Bianca said. It wasn't even you laughing. It was Liam looking at me afterward, not understanding why the people who were supposed to love me the most didn't stand up for me." Her lip trembled. "Your grandson," I continued, "who made you birthday cards, picked wildflowers for you, and asked every month if he could sleep over, he stood up for me. Not you." She broke then, hands shaking. She covered her mouth and sobbed, real sobs, ugly ones. Liam, bless him, walked over and put his small hand on hers. "It's okay, Grandma," he said solemnly. "Mom says everyone makes mistakes. It cracked something in all of us. That little hand, that little voice." He had no idea the weight of what he was lifting with that one sentence. We cried. We talked. We didn't solve everything. But we began. And for once, Diana listened instead of directing. My father spoke up instead of shrinking back. Michael suggested therapy. Surprisingly, they agreed. We began sessions with Dr. Elaine Winters, a soft-spoken but firm family therapist who didn't let any of us hide behind polite words. She dug into everything: the favoritism, the silence, the old resentments. One session in particular will stay with me forever. "Diana," she said, "you often diminish Olivia's achievements." Why? My mother blinked. "I don't mean to, but you do, I suppose." Diana faltered. "I suppose it's because I was taught that motherhood without a husband was a failure, that being successful meant marrying well. I didn't realize I was projecting my shame. And Harold, Dr. Winters said, you often disengage when things get emotional. Why is that?" He cleared his throat. "My father was a drunk. Arguments led to violence. I learned early that silence was safest. And in that silence, your wife controlled the narrative." He nodded. "And Olivia," she turned to me, "what do you want from them?" I took a breath. "Respect. I've never needed money or praise or even attention. But I needed to be seen. Not pitied, not dismissed. Seen. For who I am, for the life I've built, for the child I've raised with love and honesty and sacrifice." Dr. Winters smiled softly. "That's a powerful thing to ask for. And long overdue. It wasn't a miracle, but it was movement." We kept going. Michael became a fixture again. Sunday dinners, random visits, surprise pickups from school. He brought Liam little toys and taught him how to play chess. He helped me repaint my hallway, replant my balcony garden. We were becoming siblings again. And then one day, he showed up with someone new. Her name was Elise, a children's librarian. Smart, thoughtful, warm. She met Liam at a Saturday picnic, and within minutes they were deep in conversation about dinosaur trivia. She complimented my flower arrangements without once comparing them to someone else's. She spoke to me like an equal. She was everything Bianca wasn't. Later that night, Michael said simply, "It's different with her." And I believed him. The weeks that followed the wedding felt like the first days of spring after a brutal winter, still a chill in the air, but something soft beginning to thaw. At first, I braced for backlash. Weddings like Michael's lavish, society-splashed affairs don't implode quietly. I expected whispers in my inbox, passive-aggressive posts, maybe even a drop in business. But instead, something unexpected happened. People reached out not with judgment, but with support. The day after the story made the rounds, a client whose daughter's quinceañera I'd designed years ago sent me a message. I was there. "The grace you showed, the strength you inspired my daughter and me. Let me know if you're taking new bookings." Another guest, someone I barely remembered meeting, left a voicemail. She wanted to renovate her restaurant's indoor garden and said she was impressed by how I held myself with dignity, even while being ambushed. Suddenly, inquiries doubled, then tripled. Within 2 weeks, I had enough work to hire a part-time assistant. I'd never sought attention, not like Bianca did, with her curated Instagram and airbrushed brunch posts. But it turns out people notice character, quiet strength, honesty in the face of humiliation. Liam noticed, too. "Mom," he said one evening, "I think people like you more now." I laughed, ruffling his hair. Maybe they just see me clearer now. "Because I told the truth," he asked, eyes wide. "Because you were brave," I said, pulling him into a hug. "And because sometimes, when people tell the truth, the world starts shifting in the right direction." He seemed to think about that for a while, then nodded as if he were filing it away under important life stuff. Michael called often now, not out of obligation, but simply to talk. About Liam's latest drawing, about new ideas for his apartment, about Elise. I didn't know relationships could feel this, steady. He told me one evening, "There's no game with her, just air, space to breathe." I was happy for him, truly, but I couldn't ignore the strange little pang that settled in my chest some nights. I wasn't lonely. Exactly. Liam filled my world, my work was fulfilling, but seeing my brother rebuild with someone kind and genuine reminded me how long I'd gone without that kind of partnership. Then, one Thursday afternoon, I got a text from Connor. Yes, that Connor Michael's best man. The one who had stood up at the wedding and backed Liam's testimony when it mattered most. The quiet one with the soft voice and steady hands who had always hovered on the edge of our family events without drawing too much attention. "Connor, hey, I was thinking, would you be open to coffee sometime? No wedding drama, I promise." I stared at the screen for a full minute, then typed back, "Olivia, depends. You buying we met at a tiny bookshop cafe on 5th Street, tucked between a stationery store and a bicycle repair shop. It smelled like cinnamon and old paper." Liam was with Michael for the afternoon, some secret boys' adventure, which I strongly suspected involved too much ice cream. Connor stood when I walked in, his nerves practically visible. "I don't know why I'm so awkward," he said with a half laugh. "We've technically known each other for a decade. Yes, but we've never talked without Bianca rolling her eyes in the background." I teased. That made him smile. We talked for hours. About everything and nothing. About how he'd wanted to speak up earlier but didn't know how. About how he admired the way I raised Liam. About his work in nonprofit consulting and the books he secretly writes but never shares. At one point, I said, "You're quieter than most people I know." He looked at me and said, "I've always believed the loudest people in the room often have the least to say. But when someone like you speaks, people should listen." It was the first time in a long while that someone really saw me without filter or pity or expectation. We took it slow, cautious, gentle. Liam liked him immediately, not in the way he adored Michael, but in the way kids can sense safety. He started drawing pictures of the three of us. He slipped one into Connor's backpack without telling me. I found out when Connor sent me a photo, a stick figure family holding hands under a rainbow with the caption, "Connor can be in our team too." And slowly, a new version of our life began to take shape. By fall, the leaves in our neighborhood turned fiery orange, and Liam's school invited me to speak at a career day event. I almost declined. I wasn't used to being center stage, but Liam begged. "You can show them how you made the flower arch for Aunt Lila's wedding. And tell them you're the bravest mom." That did it. I stood in front of 20 curious fourth graders, holding a dried bouquet and some snapshots from my studio. I told them how flowers could say things people didn't know how to say: sympathy, celebration, apology, hope. Afterward, Liam's teacher pulled me aside. "You should know," she said gently. "Liam stood up for another student last week. A boy was being picked on for wearing hand-me-downs." Liam told the other kids, "Some families don't have everything, but they have love. And that's enough." My throat tightened. "He's a remarkable child," she added. That kind of empathy, it comes from home. That night, I found Liam curled up with his sketchbook. He looked up as I entered and said, "Did I say something wrong again?" I knelt beside him. "No, sweetheart, you said something exactly right." He nodded and went back to coloring. I sat beside him, overwhelmed by the quiet miracle of him. The way he moved through the world with kindness. The way he reminded me of everything good I'd fought to hold on to. Even when the world tried to convince me I had nothing. And for the first time in years, I felt something deeper than survival. I felt peace. By winter, something had shifted, not in a dramatic way. There were no grand declarations, no teary montages of reconciliation, but in the quiet routines, the Sunday dinners that no longer felt like performances, the impromptu phone calls, the shared laughter over Liam's knock-knock jokes, our family began to feel functional, even warm. My mother surprised me one evening by showing up with a tray of lasagna, still hot from the oven. She stood awkwardly in the doorway, her perfectly styled hair now sprinkled with gray roots, her designer coat clashing with the humble hallway of my apartment building. "I made too much," she said. Even though we both knew that wasn't true, I let her in. She placed the tray on the counter, then noticed the half-decorated flower wreath on the table. "That's beautiful," she said, after a long pause. I waited for the but. It didn't come. Instead, she asked, "Do you ever teach classes I think I'd like to learn?" I blinked, then nodded. "I do sometimes." She smiled softly. "Let me know when the next one is." After she left, Liam peeked out from his bedroom. "Was that Grandma? Yeah? Did she bring cake? No? Lasagna? That's okay." Then he went back to his book. Michael, true to his word, became more than just an uncle who showed up. He became a presence. He picked Liam up from school when I had client meetings. He dropped off surprise hot chocolates on rainy days. He helped Liam build a model of the solar system using old foam balls and spray paint from his office. He no longer talked about the wedding, about Bianca, or what could have been, but sometimes, in quieter moments, I saw the shadow behind his smile, the realization of what he almost stepped into, the grief of wasted years. Elise helped. Her presence was calm, restorative. She didn't try to impress anyone. She simply showed up with stacks of children's books, with patience, with open ears. Liam adored her. She once spent 2 hours helping him build a pillow fort and read The Secret Garden inside it with all the voices. She gets it. Michael told me once, she sees people, not just roles. She reminds me of you. I didn't know what to say to that. And Connor, he was still Connor, steady, present, patient. We didn't define things at first. He didn't push. Some nights we'd sit on my couch and watch documentaries while Liam built Lego towers at our feet. Other times he'd invite us to walk through the local botanical gardens just before closing, saying, I figured it's only fair to let the plants show off to the expert. He never made me feel like a burden. Never acted like dating a single mom was a compromise. One Saturday, as Liam was showing him a drawing he'd made of our team, Connor asked, You know what makes teams great? Liam tilted his head. Winning Connor smiled. Not always. Sometimes it's just about having each other's backs, no matter what. Liam considered that, like when I told the truth at the wedding. Connor nodded. Exactly like that. Liam grinned, then looked at me. See, I'm the MVP? Connor laughed. Undisputed. By early spring, we had a rhythm. I started offering weekly floral classes at the community center. My mother came to every single one. She wasn't particularly good at it. Her roses always looked more like cabbages, but she showed up. And that mattered more. Harold came too, sometimes just to pick her up, sometimes to linger at the back and watch. Once, I caught him helping a little girl carry her oversized centerpiece to the car. He winked at me as he passed. And for the first time in decades, I saw the version of my father I'd always wished had existed. At one session, my mother stayed behind while I cleaned up. Can I ask you something, she said, gently wiping petals from the table. Of course. When you decided to keep Liam, she began, choosing her words with unusual care. Did you ever worry you'd made a mistake? I looked at her. Startled. Every day. At first, I was terrified. She nodded, as if she'd expected that. But not because of him. I added quickly. Because of me. Because I wasn't sure I'd be enough. My mother swallowed hard. You were more than enough. It hung there between us, raw and real. I used to think the worst thing that could happen to a woman was to end up alone. She said, Now I see the worst thing is never learning how to be whole. I didn't know what to say, so I just reached for her hand and squeezed it. And for once, she squeezed back. A month later, Liam's school held their annual character assembly. It was a simple event. Folding chairs in the gym, handwritten posters on the wall, a handful of certificates passed out for most improved in kindness and best listener. Then they called Liam's name. Liam Hayes, the principal said, smiling, for courage and honesty. I blinked. So did Michael. My mother sniffled. Liam walked to the front, chin high. He accepted the certificate and turned to the audience. I didn't know it was brave to tell the truth, he said. But my mom said it always matters, even when it's scary. The gym fell quiet, then erupted in applause. Afterward, while people milled around and congratulated each other, Liam walked up to me and whispered, Can we get pizza tonight? I kissed his forehead. Extra cheese. That night, as we sat in our tiny kitchen, sharing a pizza and laughing about Connor's latest attempt at cooking, he'd managed to burn spaghetti. I looked around and saw something I never thought I'd feel again. Not perfection, not wealth or power or status, but family, the kind you build with your own hands, the kind that takes root after fire, the kind that tells you, you are not too much, you are not too little, you are enough, exactly as you are. And in that moment, I knew we were going to be just fine. A year to the day after my brother's wedding imploded, We threw a different kind of celebration. There were no tuxedos, no chandeliers or champagne towers, no string quartets or color-coded seating charts. Just a sunny backyard, paper streamers, plastic tablecloths, a bouncy castle rented by Michael, and a giant homemade cake with 9 crooked candles. It was Liam's birthday, and for the first time, it felt like everyone was there for the right reasons. My parents arrived early. My mother brought a fruit salad shaped like dinosaurs. Liam loves them, she said proudly, and my father was in charge of the grill, already wearing a novelty apron that said Master of Meat. He never would have worn something so goofy a year ago. Today, he wore it like a badge of honor. Michael came with Elise, who brought a storybook she'd inscribed just for Liam. She read it aloud during cake time, doing all the voices. Liam laughed so hard at her impression of the grumpy dragon that he almost dropped his cupcake. Connor stood beside me for most of the afternoon, one arm around my waist as we watched Liam dart from activity to activity like a boy finally rooted in joy. His shirt had grass stains, his knees were dirty, and there was frosting on his cheek. He looked absolutely radiant. As the guests gathered around for the candle lighting, I felt the weight of the moment settle in gently, not heavy, but warm, like a favorite blanket. One wish. Buddy Michael called out. Liam glanced around at the faces, his family, his friends, his community, and smiled. Then he blew out all 9 candles in a single breath. I clapped with everyone else, but inside, I was holding back tears, because this small, chaotic, heartfelt moment was the culmination of everything we had been through. The humiliation, the truth, the slow rebuilding, the freedom after the cake. Diana pulled me aside while Liam opened his gifts on the patio. I wanted to give you something, she said, handing me a small velvet box. Inside was a silver locket. Etched onto the back were the words, "You were always enough." I looked up, startled. I had it made. She said, "It's true, I just didn't see it until it was almost too late. My throat tightened. Thank you." She hesitated. "And I'm sorry for every time I made you feel like you had to earn our love." I nodded, not trusting my voice, not needing more. Later, while cleaning up wrapping paper and paper plates, I found Liam sitting alone on the grass, sketchpad in hand. He was drawing us his version of our family. There we were, me, Liam, Michael, Elise, Connor, my parents, all smiling, all holding hands. Even the dog from next door made it into the picture. "You think we'll always be like this?" he asked without looking up. "Like what happy?" I sat beside him. "I think happiness isn't something that just stays. It's something we have to keep making." He nodded, as if that made perfect sense. "Then can I add Connor's name to our mailbox?" I smiled. "Maybe soon." We sat there as the sun dipped lower, the light casting golden halos around the edges of everything. The yard smelled like charcoal and lemonade. The sounds of laughter drifted through the open windows. No ghosts of Bianca, no shadows from last year. Just this imperfect, vibrant, real. In the months that followed the party, life continued its slow, steady bloom. My business expanded. I finally opened a small storefront downtown, a dream I'd shelved for years. My mother offered to help with the books, and surprisingly, she was good at it. She'd come in once a week, take notes in her monogrammed planner, and chat with customers like she'd been part of the shop since day one. Michael proposed to Elise that fall. The ring was modest, the proposal private, just the 2 of them. On a park bench with hot chocolate, Elise said yes through happy tears. When they announced it, no one made a speech about pedigrees or privilege. My mother cried for all the right reasons this time. They decided on a small spring wedding, no planners, no guest list war zones, just love. Liam will be the ring bearer, and I've been asked to design the bouquet. Connor and I, we're still writing our story, slowly. intentionally. There's no rush to define everything. He doesn't complete me. He joins me. And I think that's more powerful. Sometimes he still gets quiet when I ask him how he's feeling. But he always circles back, always shows up. That consistency is its own kind of romance. One evening, as we sat on the porch watching Liam race a scooter down the sidewalk, Connor turned to me and said, "You know, I think you saved more than just yourself when you stood your ground last year." I raised an eyebrow. "What do you mean you reminded your whole family what truth sounds like?" I looked at Liam, his laughter echoing down the block, and thought about that. Not just truth, but courage, resilience, love, the kind that starts small, one step, one word, one honest moment, and grows like wildflowers in unexpected places. It still amazes me sometimes how close I came to shrinking myself forever, how easily I could have let humiliation define me, how tempting it was to believe the lies others projected, that I was less, that I was pathetic, that I didn't belong. But standing here, in the life I rebuilt with my own two hands, surrounded by people who now truly see me, I know the truth. I was never the problem. Their expectations were. And Liam, my sweet, brave boy, was never the burden. He was the light. It took a microphone and an 8-year-old's courage to reveal a truth that had always been there. That sometimes the smallest voices hold the biggest truths. That family isn't who poses for the perfect photo, it's who stands beside you when the lens shatters. And that healing isn't a destination. It's a choice, made every day, in every hug, every apology, every second chance. And I will keep choosing it. For me, for Liam, for the life we've created from honesty, grit, and grace.